what point did you come to the story? Was it after the arrest, and how did it work in terms of the negotiations with Pussy Riot themselves and the access that you got to them?
Well, it was quite sort of straightforward, really. I mean, yeah, once obviously, as I say, they came to our attention, and we knew we wanted to do something with them, and then once they'd been arrested, we were certain. So we just kind of flew out to Moscow and made contact with their legal team and their family and supporters and friends. Nadia's husband, Peter, is a very kind of good conduit to the whole situation, and I mean, they were immediately up for making a film. I mean, they were very keen for their story to be told, and I think particularly by perhaps an outside kind of group. And we just sort of followed events from there. I mean, it was obviously very unpredictable what would happen, whether the trial would go ahead, and how long it would all take, and all that. But
and whether it would be filmed. I think at one of the big turning points that we didn't quite know whether we could make a film about the three women individually, and I think that because we didn't know whether a trial would be filmed, it was filmed by the RIA Novosti, the Russian kind of equivalent of Reuters, and so that material really transformed, because ultimately, I think as one of our editors, Esteban, what I was sitting right there, we said, you immediately wanted to know who are these people. Once their balaclavas are removed, who are they? And once we realized that this material, this footage when they're sitting and they're talking amongst themselves, a lot of people don't realize that at this point they had been in the detention facility, and they're sitting there on different floors, and they have no interaction with one another. So really the only time they had a chance to interact was on the bus ride to the court and during this hour or two before the trial began. And so this was such an incredible opportunity to really be there with them and to go through with it. And so we realized that at that point you could really make an immersive film, something closer to a verite film, as opposed to a film that kind of analyzes and kind of explains everything to you about the story.
Yeah, and what they, of course, do in the court is turn their appearance in the doc into a performance, and the fact that it was recorded and filmed incredibly well, we might add. I mean, these Moscow-trained cameramen are incredibly good. So yeah, it was a great deal of luck, but it allows, as Max says, for us to really let them tell their story very much.
Absolutely. And it wasn't any issue kind of gaining their trust, because obviously it's
no,
they warmed to you straight away.
Yeah, I mean, they'd been very badly abused by the Russian media, and there's
absolutely.
lots of scurrilous television programs make about them. A lot of them, we have a little bit of one of them, which gives you a flavour of the kind of unbiased way that their story was reported. And so they were keen for, let's say, disinterested parties or
they also had other concerns at the time.
Well, that's true. Exactly. They weren't that concerned.
And I mean, in many ways, it was just like making any other film. You go there, you befriend people, you start speaking to them, you get your idea of what you're trying to do across. And some of the parents, for example, took a little while to come around to do interviews because so for example, Masha's mom wasn't really speaking to anyone about it because she had been, I think, most against what they had done. Right, so, yeah. So yeah, but and in many ways, yeah, it was just coming out of a conversation. One of the most kind of significant moments in figuring out the film was sitting next to Katya's father in the courtroom, and it was actually before we were even talking about the film. And he says, you look at this courtroom, and there's two Russias in here, and they hate one another, and they don't know how to speak to one another, and that's really so much. And for us, the film was very much about a story of generational conflict as well.
Yeah, because you try to bring over the point of view that although you deal a lot with the political hierarchy and with the church, which I hope we'll come on to in more detail, there is the sense that you do deal with the very heartfelt criticisms of what they've done. Just because there's a lack of comprehension, it's kind of do you feel that is just about the shifting generations, or is there a real resistance to kind of feminism and to sort of anarchic art forms?
I think it's all of the above, really. I mean, I think that it's they are more radical. They're radical by even Western standards. They're incredibly radical by Russian standards, and then there's the political dimension, the religious dimension, the role of the media, and everything. It's a perfect storm, really.
Yeah, I mean, both sides are kind of extreme. I mean, obviously the religious right, are very much part of a new wave of extreme nationalism, which Putin has done a lot to drive, and So it's not so much a religious thing as a political one, and they are extreme nationalists, and they are feminist Democrats, and people that want to achieve, you know, social justice and progress in their country. So, you know, but as you say, I think the story is characterized by this misunderstanding on both sides. And again, I think Max would agree, one of the things we wanted to show in the film was that they are, you know, patriots. They aren't foreign agents trying to undermine the state, which is actually how they were characterized to begin with. I think the BBC was accused at one stage of being behind all the the church performances and others, you know. But no, they genuinely want democratic change and progress in their country.
Yeah, and hopefully that, I think in showing the film to Russian people, especially Russian people that may have been more against them at the outset upon hearing it. At first, I'm sure there's some here, you know, even my mother, I think that people do come around, that even if they're still uncomfortable with the means that they use, I think that their idealism and their lack of cynicism and their kind of patriotic nature does come through, and I think that that's very important.